My fellow speakers, I think this is kind of interesting, especially looking at the past few years and especially recent years. We see a lot more proactive role played by the regulators and as well as the SRO in driving good corporate governance. To us all, which is in the investment profession, why is it good governance become important and must be embedded into business practices, and how the industry has changed with respect to its governance and code of conducts? Well, I'm going to open the floor to our panel speakers over here. Gillian, do you want to start off with your comments?
Good morning. Hi. Yeah, governance has become very, very important. And I think many people still think governance as, something that is board level. But they fail to see that actually governance affects the whole company and the whole industry and the rest of the economy. So governance has become very important of late, like Eugene was saying about, all the failures and the mis-selling and things like that. So these are all actually because of failure in governance. I think in Malaysia we've started, putting in many controls, many regulations. I'm sure SC has done a lot as well. Bursa is doing some education. They are also reviewing their CG guide, or I think they launched their CG guide. Bank Negara has actually started this program called the Financial Institutions Directors Education Program, which we run at ICLIF, and every new director has to go through the program. So, governance has become very important, and we are actually stepping up in Malaysia.
I think it's interesting to look at, a lot of people are hopping on failures, but I think at the same time there's successes as well. It'll be interesting to look at, what drive people towards, failure and successes in the governance.
I think if we look at what happened globally, a lot of this are driven by high KPIs, the need to meet high KPIs, compensation. People are driven by high compensation, high, reaching targets. So as a result, they do things that are unethical or just wanting to get to what they want.
I think it's also a driving factors of, mis-sellings. But how about successes? What drive people towards successes? By looking at, investment industries, everyone say, or even clients would ask, make money for me, don't lose money for me. And bottom line has become, again, very prominent to not just investors expecting, bottom line, corporate as well. How does it, balance off over time, comparing to, having a good governance? Would that impact, bottom line through over a period of time?
Definitely. I think because governance is actually putting in place your internal controls, having structures and processes. So, once you have all these proper internal controls, structures, processes, I think, bottom lines improve. Although we cannot tie bottom lines directly with good governance, but there are also companies, I think, with higher share prices now because of good governance.
Well, very good insight. Thank you, Gillian. And how about the rest of the panel speaker?
Okay, good morning. Yeah, thank you for inviting me for this panel roundtable discussion. Now, of course, I think we have to look at the whole thing holistically. the totality. Meaning in our industry, CIS, or unit trust industry, or fund management industry, I think the important thing is we all must remember that the money that are entrusted to us to manage actually are savings of the investors. So it's no difference of investor putting money in the banks. I think that is a very basic fundamental point we have to look at. And because of that, all the players in the industry must have high standard or so-called much higher standard to safeguard this money, all right, for the investors. So the players are, of course, number one, the SC, the regulator, or even the Ministry of Finance, the SC. Then we come down to the association, this FIMM. Now, association that we, as we are aware, about 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, we were granted the SRO status, self-regulatory organization. That in itself actually propels the industry to have better rules and regulation, better governance to so-called regulate the industries, all right? We are not a regulator. The regulator is still Security Commission, all right? But however, we as FIMM, the industry where all of you are members, we have a very significant role in the sense that we must implement these so-called rules and regulation to safeguard the industry, to make sure the orderly development and vibrant so-called growth of the industry. I think that's important. I think the role for FIMM is very important. Now, then comes down to you and I, all right? We are the manufacturers, you are the distributors, all right? I think it's important that we share all these important guidelines and all these behavioral guidelines to all the members so that every one of us play a very disciplined role in order to ensure that the savings of our investors are properly managed so that reasonable return will be provided to them over time. Now, over time, surely in the last few years, I think we have regulators, SC has come out with product innovation like REITs and also business trusts, all right? Now, for also appointments of FIMM as a SRO, and for FIMM, the role is we have independent or more than independent public interest directors, all right? Now, not only players like us, we are representing all the members, but the directors, the public interest directors that look into the interests of the industry and, or most important, the investors, all right? The investors. I think that is a key thing, and of course, over time, FIMM role is to make sure we so-called study, analyze, and ensure that the rules and regulations are properly done in order to propel the industry to a higher ground. So for UTCs, for registered persons, I think the most important for you all to, in order for you to grow, in order for you to have better business, in order for you to earn more money, I think if all of us play a professional role, I'm sure the industry not only can grow in the next 250 years, 2,500 years. All right? I think that is very important. Okay, thank you, Paul.
I think, Mr. Ho, it's interesting to look at, Anger. I think a lot of people would want to actually know a little bit more in terms of, the role of independent board members in FIMM. Have them been, driving force behind of enforcing the SRO to have, better governance?
Oh, sure. I think the public interest directors make up 45% of the board of directors of FIMM, all right? So you can see the 45%, the industry players are 55%. So industry players, in a sense, are in a more dominant position. Is still you and I looking at the interests of each other. However, the 45% are learned men and ladies, all right? They will contribute positively to the development of industry. They, in a sense that, play a very fair role in terms of looking at the industry for both as a issuers or producers of funds and also the investor interest. Like, for example, the most important thing is a fair treatment of all the investors. I think that is very important. And we have also laid down rules and ethics and rules of professional conduct of the unit trust consultants, that how we are not trying to control your behavior, but once you are in this business, you have to behave in certain ways, all right? You have to behave in a professional ways. You have to behave above board. You have to take interest of the investors as a paramount consideration.
That is interesting. Looking at driving corporate governance from top down, would it be is driven on the bottom up basis? Have you seen any successes that you're seeing? Corporate governance have been driving from a bottom up basis instead of driven by regulators and SRO.
In a sense, actually, it's driven from a bottom up because the association or SRO association is represented by industry players. All right. As a fund house, we have unit trust consultant under us. We are part of you. We represent you to the industry. In a sense, we hear the so-called the issues, problems from the unit trust consultants. All right. Now, successes are we can see number one, the growth of the industry. Now, I think we have a unit trust NAV of about 330 billion ringgit. That is more or less 110 billion US. It is very large, and it's set to grow further. I think SC has projected under the financial plan, I think second financial plan, that the industry will grow in 2020 830 billion ringgit. You just imagine how big is this industry, all right? So surely, I think industry representative like us, we will take care of the industry interest, all right? But however, what I'm trying to say is, in order to take care of the industry interest, I think we have to behave in certain way. I think very important. We can't change your ethics. I can't read your mind. We can't read your mind. I think most important thing, the rules and regulation is to direct the behavior to a certain professional way.
So caning will work?
Yes, no.
Well, leading to that, I think a comment from Mr. Ho. In terms of what are some of the activities undertaken presently and industrial-wise, and especially in your respective organization, what are the impacts of these regulation changes to your organization? Mr. Nazaruddin, you want to share that?
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.